A Day in the Life of an Athenian by Juliana Mariano. I'm focusing on Athens, which is arguably the greatest city-state of that time. Firstly, I'm going to be focusing on the social and political aspects of Athens and how it developed. So, before the polis established, before city-states established, a lot of Greece was an agrarian society. This means it was land-based economy. Most people were farmers, had light trading, and lived within small communities. It was very much run by local government, and usually those who run it were aristocrats, which means that they were the more wealthy farmers. Eventually, Greece shifted towards an economy of trade. There's a rise of merchants in the middle class, and the development of the various policies between the Greek city-states. They would trade things such as, fabrics, art, pottery, goods such as gold, um, salt, wood, a lot of natural resources, and they would do this utilizing the Mediterranean Sea, which was that large body of water that they all resided on. Athens was one of the first places ever to establish some sort of democracy. Democracy, in its name, means that it's run by the people. And again, Athens did start as an aristocracy, and so aristocracy, my apologies, aristocracy, and it was run by those who were the most wealthy. So as it shifted towards a democracy, obviously there was still an upper and lower class and the establishment of the middle class. The aristocrats began to run the polis, and then they developed something called democracy. This means that there were elections that were run by the people. Anybody who was a male and owned property, that was the definition of who could vote, they would come and they would vote and they would do a hand count, essentially. Greek democracy versus modern democracy, we vote using different polls and we vote in person still, but not in the same place where everything is being made, like decisions. Greek democracy, they would literally meet in the center of town or at the large building, and they would vote themselves. It would be a hand count. Not all the policies were democratic, however. Sparta was an example of a oligarchy, um, in which theocracy basically ruled rather than democracy. Again, as I mentioned, it was direct elections, which means that everybody who was voting had to be there, which is similar to our elections now. You can't vote if you don't show up to a voting poll. Again, you have to be a male and an adult to participate, and there were rules based on productive wealth rather than roles by birth of family. This means that people who were running, they were running based on their success. Did they come from a wealthy family? Most likely, but people who were also in the lower class and were producing a lot, they could run for office and get voted upon. They did have something similar to what I would what I would connect it to as in Congress, which was the council, which was a board of members that would help make some of the smaller decisions that didn't necessarily need public approval. You can vote upon these members of the council, and you can also be voted out of the council. Everything was pretty brutal. They would vote people out if they didn't like them, and they would basically be ostracized from politics forever. Now I'm going to focus a little bit on religion, the development of a polytheistic society. There are about 12 main Greek gods with a lot of other smaller gods that they worshipped and believed were real. Each god was representative of a natural process. For example, Zeus was one of the head gods, one of the big three, and he basically was representative of the weather. Poseidon was representative of the seas, and Hades was representative of the underworld and what happens after death, etc., etc. They would pray to these gods, have altars for them, and commit sacrifices in order to gain favor of the gods because they felt that if their crops were failing, if they sacrificed to a god, say Demeter, their crops would succeed. There was a lot of literature based around this, so a lot of people would be able to write literature about these characters and have the main characters either in favor or not in favor of the gods. The Parthenon was one of the most infamous structures in Greece. It was truly fantastic. The Parthenon was a temple, and it was dedicated to Athena, and it was very much one of the central structures in Athens. The Acropolis was the large meeting area, and this honestly took the longest to build because that is where the people gathered. The Parthenon was also built as an indication of the wealth of Athens and showing the success of Athens as an overall city-state. Now, it wouldn't be Greek history without the wars between the varying city-states. Again, they had very differing ideas of how government should be run, hence why they were separate city-states. The Peloponnesian War was primarily between the Spartans and the Athenians. The Spartans did not value education as much as the Athenians did, and they rather valued warriorship and battle. That is how they gained their wealth and their status. The war was representative of success to those who are powerful. It also showed the individuality of both city-states and why it was important to fight for them. And as many people know, the city-states were very, very, very focused on the honor and the honoring of their city-state. This is a map of ancient Greece, just provides some context. And now I'm going to be discussing the gender roles of Medea. Medea is one of those Greek tragedies that centers around a female that's breaking the gender norms established in the Greek city-states. So the normal gender roles of the city-states basically went like this. Men were eligible to vote and participate in politics. They could own property, run their own trading, and run the community. They were also seen as the head of their household. Women were seen more of the domestic and religious contexts. They could attend events, social events, but not participate. They were not really an aspect of social life at all. They could not own property, but they were seen as valued in religious contexts. However, women were seen as more inclined to sin or engage in sin than their male counterparts. Women were the runner of the household. They were not seen as the head, but they were the head of domestic affairs within the household. They were meant to run the household and keep it going. Now, Medea is the main character of her own story. She basically contradicts a lot of these things that were put upon women in these times. She contradicts the idea that women are weak. In Medea lines 282 through 284, King Creon, the king of the place that they are residing in, says, "I am afraid of you, no point of mincing words. I'm afraid you'll work incurable mischief upon my daughter." This just means that even a king is afraid of the power that Medea holds. She also has knowledge that contradicts that women are less intelligent than men. It is commonly known that Medea is a cunning character and that she plots and schemes. She also contradicts the idea that women are not representative of their house. Her husband Jason leaves the house, leaving her alone with their 2 sons. And she also contradicts the idea that women are susceptible to sin. Jason, her husband, was actually the one who committed sin here, leaving their marriage and running off with another woman. She was expected to remain that role as a mother, and she chooses against it to get back at Jason. Medea is perceived as fearless. She does not fear Creon or men. She is also seen as a rebel. She is a foreigner and a murderer. Medea is also viewed as reckless. She killed her family in her homeland, and then she eventually kills her sons to get revenge on Jason. Now, Medea is offered a few opportunities in Athens, and this just, again, shows how Athens is a bit more progressive than the other city-states. She is offered refuge from Creon. She is offered a safe place with her sons, even though they are foreigners. She's also offered citizenship. She would finally have a place to call home, and she would no longer have to run from her past. However, she rejects this offer and ends up killing her own sons to spite Jason. She's very manipulative in this. She tells Creon, "Pity them. You're a father, it's only natural," when Creon was trying to kill her. She wanted him to think about her sons and gave the illusion that she cared about them. However, as soon as Creon left, she admits, "I'll depart from this land, escaping from the slaughter of my beloved children." She plots and kills her own children to get revenge on her husband who sinned against her. She also has the power of the gods. She carries her sons away within this golden chariot and removes their bodies from Jason so he can never see them again, and she's offered that safety and refuge that she wanted all along. In conclusion, in Athens, women could not participate in social events and trade expanded. This contradicts Medea in that she would be given full citizenship because the king of Athens knows how powerful she is. The political aspects of Athens, there's democracy, which contradicts the oligarchy of other city-states, and there is aristocracy, but again, a lot of that is determined by democracy and what people choose. And the emphasis on Greek literature and Greek culture is that the gods determine one's fate. Medea was offered refuge by the gods and was able to complete her awful task of killing her own children and escaping pretty much scot-free. Here are my citations for this project. Included are citations for each of the pictures I used in my slides, and then here's the credit that I used for the template of my presentation. Thank you for listening.